Is your lower oil pan leaking? Did you hit a giant rock like me and put a big ass dent in your oil pan like this? Well, I did. So today, I'm going to replace my oil pan gasket. And to do that, these bolts in the back underneath the subframe are really hard to get to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up my transmission mounts just a little bit here. And then I'm going to take out the 4 17 mil engine mount bolts, 2 on this side, 2 on this side. Then we're going to lower the car back down, hook up old Excalibur to it, lift the engine up, and we should be able to get to all the bolts. So I ended up having to pull all the transmission mount bolts and putting a jack underneath the transmission because it just wouldn't let the engine go down, or the transmission wouldn't go down quite far enough. I couldn't get the engine up high enough. Alright guys, don't be like me. This almost turned into a horrible experience for me and a wonderful experience for you. Don't forget to drain the oil before you take all the bolts out the pan. Got the engine lifted up pretty much as high as it can go before it's starting to bind up, and it's touching on the back now, which gave us enough room to get the oil pan bolts now. It still looks like a really tight fit here, but it's definitely possible. What I'm going to try and use to get to those bolts, just a 10 mil with a swivel on the end. Got all of our surfaces cleaned up, looking good as new. When I'm down here and I got the oil pan off, I always like to check and make sure there's nothing clogging up the screen. There was a little tiny piece of RTV, but you'll have stuff like that getting sucked up in here. Cleaned all that out. Make sure my oil level floats freely moving. Got my oil pan cleaned up. Our new gasket, which it did not have a gasket on there. I don't think they come from the factory with a gasket, they're just RTV'd. But I'm going to put this new gasket on here with RTV. The bolts here that I took out, that was all covered in grease and oil. When I took them out, I just dropped them into a little bit of gas, and when I came back to them and was ready to put them in, that's what it looked like. Shook them around a little bit. They came clean as new. All the old silicone just wiped right off. I hit them with some brake clean, let them dry off a little bit. Alright, what I've done here is I put some RTV around there so that I could stick the gasket on here first, and it kind of holds it in place. I got my oil pan RTV'd and ready to go on. Almost forgot my bolts. Now that we got our oil pan back in there, it's just all a reverse procedure. We'll lower our engine back down, get the mounts, make sure they're going back in the holes, jack our transmission back up and get them bolts back in there, and that's it.